Él es John Austin, él lleva 10 años en Carlisle, comenzando como gerente de ventas nacional en Canadá y desde 2019 asumió un rol internacional. Reside en Toronto, Ontario, Canadá, y supervisa las ventas de Carlisle en Canadá, México, el Caribe, América Central, América del Sur y la región de Asia-Pacífico. Su amplia experiencia abarca múltiples mercados. John nos va a presentar el retorno de inversión para propietarios de edificios con membrana single ply, que yo siento que les va a interesar a varios. Démosle la bienvenida a John Austin.
Good afternoon. So hopefully I won't mess up this too much. Okay, here's a quick agenda of what I'd like to go through. Talk obviously about single ply, get into detail a little bit on what we offer in the way of single ply. I'm going to talk about the growth of single ply, expected growth here in Mexico, and it's not this goofy Carlisle guy just taking a dart and throwing it at the dartboard. We can lean into some real, actual growth curves of single ply in other markets when we look at the Mexican market. It's important because, you know, as Hector said, I'm from Canada, and if I go back about 15 years in Canada, single ply was a very small percentage market share of the overall flat roofing market. Very small. And, you know, our friends in the mod bit world had the majority share, and we've seen a shift. Forget about Canada. Let's go to the United States and go back in time, and I'll get into what the market share is in the United States of single ply in some slides that are coming up here. But just before I get that far, just know that it's gone through an incredible growth, and it is dominant in the flat roofing market in the US, single ply. So why am I so fired up about Mexico and the Mexican market going forward? Because by all the numbers that we have, metal is about 90% of the flat roof market here in Mexico. It is absolutely dominant. Now, we could all curl up and, you know, leave it to metal, but that's not what we do. We want to grow our single ply business and chunk into the metal business that's out there. And, you know, as the subject of my talk said, I think we can paint a real solid return on investment picture for the Mexican building owner, whereby, you know, if you look at the entirety of a roof system, it is not just the membrane. I would never be able to sell a square foot of TPO in Mexico if we took a sheet of metal and a sheet of TPO and we looked at the square footage cost. We would never sell any. Metal would beat us 100 times out of 100 without question. But when you look at how a building is constructed, that's going to take a metal roof, and how a building's constructed for a single ply roof, and look at the cost of that, look at the energy and how they insulate a metal roof. So look at the energy cost, look at the labor, look at the upkeep, and then ultimately, for a building owner and their return on investment in mind, look at what single ply manufacturers do in the way of warranty. If we're competing and we're trying to shift the Mexican market much more to single ply, what better way to do that than give a building owner who's paying a little more up front the assurance that for the length of his warranty, he's totally covered with a single ply roof on that building. Could be 10 years, 15 years, 20, could go up to 30 years. It's not just a warranty on the membrane itself or the insulation that's down below it. We also cover the labor component of that. So I think we've got a lot to talk about as single ply manufacturers as we try to paint the picture for the Mexican building owner on their return on investment. So we'll talk about single ply advantages against other systems. I am not here to beat up any other systems at all. Maybe metal a little bit, but and then of course the return on their investment. So let's talk about single ply. Carlisle happens to make both thermoplastics and thermosets. On the thermoplastic side, we have TPO and PVC. We all know in this market that TPO is absolutely dominant. but I think there is room for PVC growth in Mexico. And then we have EPDM. I don't want you to rule out EPDM for Mexico. I don't. I'll go through some EPDM performance characteristics coming up here, but I think if I could paint the picture best on EPDM's performance, I know we're in a very hot climate here with lots of sun, but it really doesn't bother EPDM. Okay, says the sales guy. What proof? In 1964, Carlisle put on an EPDM roof onto Chicago O'Hare Airport. And in 2018, we took that EPDM roof off. Quick math is that's about 54 years. That EPDM didn't break down. Chicago gets hot in the summer, gets real cold and snowy in the winter, and then hot and repeat over 54 years. What did that do to the EPDM? Nothing. We took EPDM samples from Chicago O'Hare Airport, and we actually sent it out to architects across the United States because the EPDM did not degrade. It was still within spec. Now, there was certainly stress on the seams, obviously. There had to be some overlays done over that time. There had to be some service on that roof. But to get 54 years out of a single-ply roof is pretty impressive. Anyway, don't rule out EPDM in Mexico. As the single-ply pie really starts to grow in Mexico, I think you're going to see applications where EPDM makes sense. And we don't just make it in black, we make it in white as well. So if that building owner absolutely needs white, we can accommodate with a white EPDM. Okay, what is a TPO membrane? You guys know, obviously. TPO compounded top ply, we've got a reinforcement scrim in there, we've got the TPO compounded bottom ply, and we also offer it in a fleece back. I won't go too deep into the fleece back, just know that we have a number of TPO SKUs that would allow for many different systems. Here's a bit of a head scratcher. When you look in the United States, we own, single ply owns, again, the majority of the commercial roofing space. We now have a TPO and PVC and EPDM fleece back product that actually goes in to a hook system on the insulation. It's Velcro, and it performs. And we've got it in all three different membrane types. So some advantages of TPO, it is environmental, heat and UV resistant. You will hear a lot of talk about, heat islands. You take a city, the concentration of Mexico, they don't want black roofs, on a bunch of roofs in Mexico. They say that will create a heat island. I say not, because if you have a TPO roof down and you have a black EPDM roof, TPO will reflect, and the heat will, come up a couple of feet. The EPDM is warmer on the surface of the EPDM, but it doesn't really reflect up, so it doesn't radiate heat. So that whole black-white thing and heat islands in major urban centers, I don't really buy into it. But anyway, no food source for mold or algae. It is recyclable. We are not at the and I'll get into this a little more too, but we are not yet recycling in Mexico, but we are certainly recycling in the United States. So if a TPO roof is coming off, it's been mechanically fastened, not glued down, we do recycle with the insulation. There is a story there. Excellent tear strength. We have 25-year history of making this stuff. We know how to do it, and it's got good puncture resistance. PVC membrane, not any different than really the TPO. I won't go through all the layers here, other than to point out our go-to product on PVC does have a polyester scrim, but we do offer it in fiberglass as well. Some of the advantages of PVC, proven track record, it's been around for 50 years. Chemical resistance, easy to install, fire resistance, you can read them all there. Recyclability, heat weldable, and renewable materials. PVC does have an application. I know it's a very small percentage of the sales here in Mexico, but if you're working around an airport, a building around an airport, PVC is ideal. because of the aviation fuel. Any restaurants, if there's any meat packing places where any animal grease is coming out, PVC stands up very, very well, performs a little better than TPO. But again, I put PVC and EPDM almost in the same bucket. As we grow this single-ply thing in Mexico, there will be room for, there will be more room for PVC, especially as our specs continue to grow. EPDM membrane. So if you're mechanically fastening an EPDM, we have a reinforced EPDM, as you can see on the top left. And then we have our EPDM, standard EPDM, if you will, non-reinforced EPDM. That's basically fusing 2 plies of EPDM together in a vulcanizer, almost like a solid piece of rubber. It's a great performing product. So some advantages of EPDM, weatherability and hail, as you can see up there, it's very tough, it's rubber. Low installation, maintenance, overall life cycle costs. It does expand and contract through the seasons. I talked about the O'Hare project, so you can imagine the amount of expansion and contraction that an EPDM roof went through over 54 years. And again, it doesn't break down in UV, which is shocking. It's black. You would think that UV would break down, but it simply doesn't. So let's talk about the growth of single ply. Look at this chart. When I started the talk, I talked about Mexico and the opportunity in front of us all. I know those numbers are very, very small, but on the far left, that's 2001. The big blue part there is where single ply was, and the gray area is asphaltic systems. So built up roofing, modified bitumen. 2001. Now, this only goes through 2019, but when I talk about single ply being dominant in the United States, here it is. 86% of the commercial roofs in the United States have a single ply on them. It's unbelievable. Quick math, 2019, 2001, that's 18 years. Single ply went from 58%, I think that number is, 58% to 86%, and is maintaining. Are we going to get to 86% market share in Mexico? Yes, at some point. Is it going to take 18 years or longer? Don't know. But again, events like this that we're doing here today, the work that the Carlisle team is doing here in Mexico, driving specifications, Anti's team, our friends from Elevate, we are all singing the single ply song, so that pie is going to grow. And it is going to get dominant. I just don't know how far out. Okay, so let's look at the history. Again, going back to 2001 to 2022. This is how our three, or not our three, how the 3 single ply membranes performed back in 2001. And then again, asphaltic systems at 42%. So EPDM was very strong. TPO was getting out of the gates. And PVC was at about 12%, as you can see there. And then over the course of time, you can see how TPO just absolutely cannibalized a lot of EPDM, which we're not big fans of. We have 2 EPDM plants. It's a great revenue generator. It's a profitable product that performs. So we've got a lot of money tied up in EPDM, and we certainly want to see it get back to a more reasonable share. So anyway, TPO, absolutely dominant. PVC has realized about 4 points of growth over those 21 years, but asphaltic systems, as I pointed out on the last slide, have slid down. Excuse me, slid down. So again, my point is not to beat up on any of our competition here other than these guys, metal roofing. And it's not even to beat up on metal roofing. It is to paint the picture of the opportunity that's in front of us all to claw into the massive market share that they have. You're going to see a little bit about sustainability in my presentation. You're going to see, buzzwords are used all the time, the environment and yada, yada. Where is it going? I think the next word du jour, if you will, is resiliency. Well, what does that mean? I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure put on us manufacturers to design roof systems that are tough, that can withstand a heck of a lot of wind. These, tragic weather events are increasing in frequency, and not just frequency, they are absolutely increasing in severity. We're in Mexico. You all know what happened in Acapulco a little while ago. It is going to be very important for us as manufacturers, again, to continue to design systems that will stand up. Why resiliency? Well, because for companies such as MPA, they have a bunch of tenants that are in buildings. Those tenants, after a major weather event, they want to get back into that building as quickly as possible. So we've got to have a real resilient building, including the roof, to ensure that they get back in there and there's not severe destruction, leaving them out of the building for an extended period of time. So, again, coming back to metal roofs, they offer a price out of the gate, but they don't offer what single-ply manufacturers do. Again, as we're trying to work on the building owner, we really have to drive home the fact that for the few percentage more that you're going to pay out of the gate, you've got that peace of mind. You've got that return on your investment for an extended period. What do we mean? We can go up to a 30-year warranty on our roof system. We can go up to 120 miles an hour over 30 years, which is, and again, we're not just covering the material that's on there, the insulation and the membrane, but we're also covering the labor. So you talk peace of mind. Excuse me. You talk peace of mind. There's a lot of peace of mind for that building owner in going with a single-ply system. They know that if there's an issue, it's going to be repaired. So some disadvantages with metal roofing. I'm hesitant to say low quality, but there it is on the slide. It just doesn't stand up. And when we look at these major wind events and weather events, it just doesn't perform like a single-ply system. Why am I saying that? Please, if you've got a spare few minutes and really want to get bored, go on the Carlisle website and just type into the search bar derecho. I didn't know what a derecho was, but it turns out a derecho is a hurricane that happens inland. What does that mean? I think the winds got to about 140 miles an hour in Iowa. And we were doing a school with our Rapid Lock. I quickly talked about our Velcro product, but imagine an EPDM roof going down that's in Velcro. You've got the fleece back on the membrane, it's engaged into the hooks. The roof is not completed and this derecho hits. And again, don't believe me, check out the videos. But so the roofer had done the entire field of the roof and had taken the EPDM up over the parapets and called it a day. And the derecho hit. Okay, so the next day, we get a call. The call went from the contractor to the roofing consultant to Carlisle. You got to come see your roof. We just had a 140 mile an hour wind event, and we fully expected that, yeah, we're going to come see our roof. It's going to be in the parking lot, but it wasn't. It was there. It was attached. It was flat throughout the field. And again, there was no capping it at all. That EPDM was just over the parapets to repeat. So it's a really good system. That's just indicative of where we've got to go as single-ply manufacturers. We've got to get to those better systems. These weather events are not going away. Metal will not stand up anywhere near or stand up close to the winds of 140 miles an hour. I was talking with a contractor earlier today, and I forget who it was, I apologize. But we were talking about the Acapulco event and looking at the damage that was there. And you can see some white roofs that remain, and you can see a lot of metal that's in the parking lots. So again, return on investment, resiliency, single-ply membranes, check a lot of those boxes. Metal's going to struggle. again, just looking at some of the disadvantages over on the right side, we do have a long track record with our single ply. Very strong dimensional stability after having it out in the case of PVC for 50 years and TPO for well over 25 years and EPDM forever, it seems. It absolutely has a very strong track record. Okay, so I'm very cautious to have up here the fact that single ply is lower cost. Our marketing folks pulled this together, so thank you very much. But no, we're not going to sell single ply as being a lower cost product. It just flat out isn't. I've already talked about how buildings are constructed that will take single ply, how buildings are constructed that will take metal roofing. So no, it's not. It is absolutely a little more when you look at all things in, but it is absolutely much higher performance. Sustainability, I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. Resiliency, I've already covered that to death. The recyclability, touched on, and again, up to a 30-year manufacturer's warranty. That's powerful stuff. So, you know, I've certainly tasked our guys to keep driving home that message, and it is just because I can see, I can taste the opportunity that's in front of us all with single ply. I really can. It is there. So, just a couple of things to point out. Carlisle, we do offer a 16-foot TPO. I know that TPO is so dominant in Mexico. And I also know that labor is not a huge percentage of your cost. But when we look at resiliency and we look at your project file, you know, the contractor's project file, you may have to do a number of projects in a very tight window. Okay, so this will certainly pick up the speed of which you install that TPO roof. 16 foot wide, it's a lot less seaming, it's less maintenance, and you're on and off the roof that much quicker, okay? So here's just an example of a project that was done. 2 layers of ISO, 60 mil TPO, roughly 20,000 square meters in size. And on the right side, you're gonna see typical production with 12 foot, 1,000 square feet per man per day, 15-man crew, 15,000 square feet a day. And these are actual tangible results of using the 16-foot. So again, to repeat, I know labor's not a huge cost component here in Mexico, but again, it'll allow you to get on and off that roof much quicker. This is just, I'm not gonna go through all of these guys. This is just some of the contractors that have used our 16-foot and how much they like it. I will say this, you know, Mexico is a mature TPO market. TPO has been sold here for some time. Canada is as well. And we launched this product, it was during the pandemic. Anyway, it quickly became 20% of my Canadian sales. So contractors that adopt it, contractors that are get familiar with moving it around a roof because it is quite heavy. It's about 370 kilos a roll. It is quite heavy, but again, installing it, it is much, much faster. Sustainability. I am certainly not the Carlisle expert on sustainability, and I won't pretend to be. But we are a publicly traded company, and our ESG efforts are certainly important to Wall Street, so that makes them important to us. And if anybody's interested, please let Ruben Gallo know, or Ismail, or myself reach out, and we can certainly forward you our entire ESG white paper. So if you want to drill down in deep on where Carlisle is with our ESG efforts, please reach out. If we look at our environmental efforts as part of our overarching ESG efforts, we have environmental product declarations on all of our major product lines. So we're going to tell you exactly what goes into those products and what environmental impact those components have. So we have that as well on our website. I talked about recycling, and we're not quite there yet in Mexico, but we're working towards that end. So it's really important to Carlisle that we get there. Why are we not there in Mexico yet? Because we haven't found the partners. What we found in the US was a company that would, again, would come pick up all the ISO, come pick up all the membrane as long as it wasn't adhered, and then they just basically resell it. So they don't grind it down or do something else with the ISO. They're resellers. So we are working to that end in Mexico, and I hope that we get there sooner than later. So thanks again to my marketing folks for putting a ballasted EPDM into my Mexican presentation. If anybody in this room does a ballasted EPDM roof, I've got $1,000 in my pocket because I want to take pictures here in Mexico. I don't think it'll happen, but anyway, it's quite a common system in the north. It's a great system. On the EPDM slide, I showed you the monolithic EPDM, in other words, where we vulcanize those two plies of EPDM into a solid. It's non-reinforced. Ballast is a great system, an absolutely tremendous system. You know, you can imagine with hail and, you know, there's no hail coming close to the membrane on something like that, so it's quite common, but we're in Mexico, and I can't imagine that there's any point in dragging out ballasted systems much further. I talked about our warranty. You don't have to go, obviously, with a 30-year warranty, but as we continue to work with the building owners, we certainly like to lean into it, and as you can see down here, we've done over 6,000 30-year warranties. In fairness, most of our warranties are 15-year. Our standard wind speed warranty is 55 miles an hour, but again, if you're working with us, we can scale up those designs to a 30-year, 120 as a max. So I've got one more slide to go that basically just says question and answers. I'm going to finish where I started. I am absolutely excited by the Mexican market for all those reasons. I think that the Mexican building owner is getting more and more excited to hear a presentation on how they can maximize their investment for that building and get their maximum return on their investment. It is there, right? If they are saving a little bit today and that roof only lasts 10 years, and we come in with a single-ply system that, again, is a little more, but it's not 100% more, and we can offer an ironclad warranty, labor and materials for 20 years, we've got a winning story. That doesn't matter if it's Elevate or GAF or us, and I know that this single-ply pie is just going to continue to grow. The other thing that has me really excited, we're diving in deep, and you guys are probably sick of hearing this in this room, but nearshoring, all the investment that is coming to within 150 miles of the Mexican-US border is unbelievable. Those that are investing in that part of Mexico are European, American, a lot of Chinese. Most of those that are coming in to build distribution centers or manufacturing facilities are wanting a single ply on there. It's just another data point, but I think there's going to be a heck of a lot of single ply up in that entire northern region of Mexico as that continues to expand. Okay, one last thing. We have got to be, as single ply manufacturers, very careful here in Mexico. As I look around the room, and I've said to Ruben ad nauseum, there are about 20 on the high side, single-ply contractors of size. Those that can do big projects and do them well. Most are in this room. That's cool. As single-ply grows, we have to be very careful that we only train and authorize an appropriate amount or number of contractors. Why am I saying that? You know, as single ply emerges in Mexico, we have to ensure that we have quality work. The worst thing that could happen to any of us in the single ply world is that a single ply gets out there, we authorize too many contractors, and you know, single ply roofs are sitting in a parking lot. You want to talk about a momentum killer? That's one. So we've got to get the right number of contractors as this thing grows and not too many. Let's go back to the metal world. If I go back to those same 20 single-ply large contractors that are in Mexico today, most of whom, I believe, do metal roofs as well. But the problem is, there are so many contractors in Mexico that do metal. You take these large contractors that have real overhead, an office, a warehouse, a sales staff, crews and crews and crews, and you've got a metal contractor that has a pickup truck and a ladder. Now, the building owner may look at that pickup truck and ladder guy and say, no way, he can't do that. He's not qualified to do the job. But the problem is that small contractor could set the margin of the larger contractor. So the building owner doesn't want to use the small guy, but he bet you he wants to use the price. So we can't have that on the single ply side. I'm not suggesting that's happening broadly in Mexico today, but we have to be careful. It is a priority of mine to work very closely with our Mexican sales team and vetting each and every contractor. We have not expanded our contractor base dramatically at all here in Mexico. As that pie grows, there's going to be more people knocking on the door for that training. They're going to want to be part of that growth. They're going to want to enjoy the fruits of our specification efforts, right? They see a Carlisle spec out there, they're going to want a piece of that. A piece of that. So anyway, we're very aware of it, and we want to keep our contractors to a reasonable number to ensure quality work. And the last thing I will say on that is that we're only going to be important to the contractor if we don't water it down and have hundreds and hundreds of contractors out there. So I thank you all for your time. And again,
So what will be the average number of years for the ROI, return of investment, for a 45 mil or 60 mil single ply membrane, just as an average?
what is the average lifespan?
Number of years you will get the ROI.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I talked about our warranty duration and, going up to 30 years. An 060 TPO, you'll get 20 plus, depending on where you are, right? I just want to say about TPO without, again, beating up any of our competition. Not all TPO is the same. And really what sets North American single-ply manufacturers aside from the competition, I'm talking about Europe, is the weathering package that we put on our TPO. So whether it's GAF or Elevate or Carlisle, we put a weathering package on there that allows that TPO to stand up for an extended period of time. There are European TPOs and some Chinese TPOs, but mostly European TPOs that are starting to make their way across the pond. Here's the challenge with a European TPO today coming to a market like Mexico. Heavy, heavy, heavy UV in Mexico, obviously. And if you look at where Paris, France is on a globe and draw a straight line across to Canada, you end up in northern Canada, James Bay to be specific. Not a lot of UV. Europe doesn't get a lot of UV. Now, can European TPO be made differently and put in a North American weatherability package? Absolutely. I don't believe it's happening today. So, Hector, 20 plus comfortably. And I would say, honestly, with our 080 membrane, certainly 30 plus years is not an issue. And I'm rambling, I know, but 080 is going to grow in popularity here in Mexico. Sika just presented on the solar that's happening. We're seeing a lot of solar-ready roofs going out there, and to be solar-ready, you're looking at an 080 thickness. Okay?
Thank you, John.
I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.